Hello everybody and welcome. In this video I will be showing you a total of 10 techniques you can use using different hub pieces to make round designs. These are modifiable, they're not really like how you should do it, but I think there's some really good techniques and I hope to see them in some of your mocks in the future. So, without further ado, let's get into technique number 1. Okay everybody, so technique number 1, you have seen 2 or 3 times on the channel before, and it is using wagon wheels. Now, there are 2 sizes of wagon wheels now. I think there might be a third, but I do not actually have any. And this, I believe, is a new piece. It is really nice for this technique because if you look closely, there are these bolt nubs on this, and it makes it really hard because you can't actually clip the clip on where the nub is, so you have to work around it. But with this new piece, I believe, it is nubless, so you can use this technique I really like, where it's just clips, plates, and cheese slopes. You have to mess with it a little, but it makes a really smooth, clean design. I'm actually using this technique in my current mock, Felucia. If you have not seen the building series for that, I'd recommend going and checking it out. I have used quite a few cool techniques in there. So, technique number 2 is a little more complicated, and this includes a piece from, I believe, the Star Wars Christmas special set, and it's the snowflake piece. And pretty much the way I did this is I used one of these short bar pieces, this piece, and I stuck it in the bottom one and the top one, and then I used these studs with holes in them to attach tiles, and it actually makes a perfect circle. There are slight gaps in it, sadly, so it isn't perfect, but I think as long as you're not looking too close at it, it's pretty good. And if you don't like being able to see other colors too much, you can at least replace the hold studs with light bluish gray, but I don't think it's too much of a big deal. And of course, this one's really easy to make just really tall because these are fully pushed, and that's why the rod is there, is so they line up, being fully pushed against the studs, and it makes it so you can make it as tall as you want. You just probably want another set of these at the top. So for technique number 3, this is the last non-fragile technique, and you've probably seen this before. It is using these tread pieces, and you can actually attach a 1x3 tile or plate, or actually any length tile or plate, onto the tread piece, and there is a certain number. This is the maximum you can fit, so it is very specific to the scale you can go, and pretty much the only size you can make it. You could, in theory, shrink it, but you'd get gaps, and so that wouldn't be the best. And so this isn't my favorite technique. I've decided to not use this in any mocks. I just wanted to show it off because it is a good technique, and for that size, it is a very cheap technique compared to pretty much any other I will show you. So I thought I'd mention it. But anyways, on to technique number 4. This one is a pretty unique one. and that is because it uses a plate. Now, how I have attached and used this, you actually have a 1 plate gap, which isn't too hard to fill if you're making this taller than 1 plate, but for this height it is very difficult to fill, so not the best for that, but I think this is a really clean technique for this type of paneling. So, of course, if you were building something that you wanted uneven, this would be pretty expensive, but I think the plate is a really good. So, the other thing you can do with this circle technique is replace it with a larger version if you want to make this taller and not use up so many pieces. All you need to do is replace the stud you see there with a large plate, as tall as you want it, or you can connect smaller plates. And what you want to do is then put tiles along the side of the plate, and then connect it just like you would the other version. The only thing is, if you can't exactly mix these, you actually can if you wanted to do some complicated Lego maths and somehow fill a half plate gap on top. But other than that, I think this is a really good technique. Use this, which is just a downscaled version using a toilet seat. Now, most of the techniques I can show you that involve clips, you can use pretty much any other clip variation that I'm showing you. Sadly, the cheese slope technique will not work on this though, because there is a gap left. So sadly, this is pretty much reserved for this technique only. But I think the toilet seat, if you're going for a smaller version of the previous one, I think this works really well and looks honestly probably even better, just because it is a little less fragile, so these move around a little more for some reason. Don't know why that is, but it's just how it is. And so, as you can see, this is also left with a small gap, which is actually worse than the last one because it isn't an exact plate. So that is a downside if you are going with a, let's say, well, you're going to have a gap on one side that isn't too hard to fill. You could put some cylinders behind it, something behind it, or what I would probably do is just not use this if you're going with something with a 360 view of it. And so if you were using this as a tower on a building, just put this corner against the building, and so let's say it cuts off about that much, you're left with a perfectly nice semicircle. So I think that's a very good technique for certain usages. And on to technique number 6. Okay, so technique number 5 is the first non-perfect circle technique I'm showing you. And you'll probably recognize this from the mock I did just a little while ago, and forget the exact name, but it was a Dune, kind of Tatooine-like planet mock, and I really enjoy this technique. It's using one of these 3-way lightsaber hilt pieces, mostly found in Ninjago sets, actually. I've only seen it used a couple times elsewhere. And I think this looks really good if you're using it for some kind of mechanical looking thing. And you can just replace these with something like a one of these 1x1 tiles with a rod. It's kind of hard to get in there sometimes, but I have gotten it to stay in, barely, so I wouldn't recommend doing that, but if you do want a little bit of a smoother look, you might be able to get that in sometimes. Anyways, that wraps up this technique. Onto technique number 7, which is an interesting technique, being another non-perfect circle. So for technique number 7, it uses a piece from the ornament set that is pretty new, and I believe this is a brand new piece. It is the ring, like, holder thing. Not sure exactly what to call it, but you can actually connect clips to it, and if you're wondering why this is such a weird module, it is because the clips are very loose, and so they connect, they don't fall off, but they don't stay in place because it is a perfectly round bar that is just slightly smaller for some reason than a normal bar, so they don't clip on super tight. And I wouldn't recommend using this technique, actually. It's very annoying and not very reliable, but I thought, why not include it? It's very interesting, and if you want an oval, or a semi-oval, I guess, because there's a hole in the back, I'd recommend using this technique. Now, the last 3 techniques I haven't built full versions, mainly because they put quite a bit of stress on your pieces, so be forewarned. So anyways, the loose one surprisingly uses a gear. Now, these 3 will also be incomplete because they put stress or are too loose, and so this one, you can see it holds on there, kind of. I mean, if you had it, you know, as some kind of circle thing, you pretty much just have to mess with it for long enough, and you can kinda move it around, maybe. It's pretty much not better than just making a circle with your pieces, but I thought that it would be something that somebody might use if you have one of these gears lying around. On to technique number 9. This technique uses a wheel, which you don't actually need the rim in there to do, just using the wheel piece, but I think the rim just kind of secures that circular shape. You know, you don't get any flex or bend in your tire, but this does put quite a bit of stress, mostly on the clip, but you will get most likely some slight marks on your tire. I believe that you can see it on camera. Yep, right there. There are marks on the tire now, so be forewarned that this technique will damage your pieces eventually. Now, with the second version of this technique, it actually uses the rim, so you get 2 techniques in one full tire wheel piece. And it uses just the same thing, you just clip them on. This puts stress on your clips and the tire piece, but I think this is also a good option. So even though they put some stress on your pieces, I think if you are not going to use this as a long-term model, like let's say you're just going to keep it around for 2 weeks or so, I would recommend using this. If you're going to let it sit there for 2 months plus, I'd recommend not using this, just because eventually your clips will probably break or be ruined because they are flexed too much, and your tire will be ruined from the clips marking it up. Of course, at a distance this isn't noticeable, so I wouldn't worry about the tire piece too much, I'd just worry about the clips. So, anyways, that is all the techniques I have, and I hope you enjoyed. If you are interested in any more technique videos like this, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel to not miss that other video. I hope to do another one of these pretty soon. I have an idea for some techniques that I can show off in the next video. I won't spoil that though. So, anyways, enjoy the rest of your day, and see you in the next video.